Why I believe in borders. A country has borders around it to protect the country so that no one can get into the country to bring in drugs and things like that. So everything's checked at the border. If we humans had borders, uh, it would define borders, definite borders, and that we would not allow people or things to cross, then our lives would be better. It's something we should have been all been taught as children. My family had none. If I wanted to be gay, mum would have been fine with it. If I wanted to be a criminal, mum would have been absolutely fine with it. So would dad. If I wanted to join a gang, they would have been fine with it. No problem whatsoever. So there were no borders. You could just do whatever you want, basically. Uh, so, as a human being, each and every person should have borders. And if your marriage had borders, you get two people marry. At the start of the marriage, they have a set of rules. They say no pornography, no affairs, no flirting with other people, no going out to parties without the other, or going to functions without the other, and things like that. If during their marriage borders were broken or crossed, then those are what I would see as grounds for divorce. And that would be like if the man found out she was having an affair. Many would argue and say they should get back together. But for me, in all the relationships I've ever had with women, has always been as soon as you have an affair with someone else, you're gone. That was it. And every single one of them laughed when I said it, and every single one of them did it. So it's not good for the confidence, I tell you. But anyway, so borders, I believe in borders because borders are where we restrict ourselves with maturity and wisdom from doing things that can harm ourselves and our own children. So the border around us protects us from either us going into areas we shouldn't go into, and at one stage in life we knew that, and it's we use it to stop people coming in that could cause problems in our life. On top of that, we use it to guide our morality, meaning in our work ethics. So if you're a scientist, there was a time where cloning, abortion, and things like that were not considered things that scientists would do. Today, I don't see any limits on science now. They'll do anything. But there was a time where they had limits, and it was a better time because they would concentrate on the science of the planet, and they would concentrate on doing ethical science where they had moral boundaries that stopped them stepping over to certain areas like genetically modifying food and the like, and putting poisons in our water and our food supplies like preservatives and the like. So there were these boundaries. Nowadays they do moral things, and then the government says, but science says it's right. And so the word science is led to believe that it's moral, it's decent, and it's for better health. This is not necessarily the truth anymore due to scientists being willing to be paid off, basically. Or if to keep their job, they have to bend their rules to go in certain directions. So a boundary and a strong boundary. We see a lot of it today with the COVID injections, where a lot of people have resigned from their jobs or been kicked out of their jobs because they don't want to take the injection. So people, those kind of firm beliefs are disappearing fast. And in order to have a better society or your own better life, you govern your own life your own way, live within the rules of the society in a practical, moral, decent manner then you're still living a good life in a bad society. So the boundaries protect you, and the boundaries shouldn't be brought down for anything. Once you put the boundaries up, they start. One's like, I went to a church where the pastor was always saying, everything's a temptation. I used to drink, and every time I see alcohol, it's a temptation. Every time I see a woman, it's a temptation in front of his wife and stuff. Every time I think of cigarettes, it's a temptation. It's not. If it was a temptation to him, then he's weak. Because for me, alcohol is not a temptation. I know the effects of alcohol. I know what it does. I know what parties do. They're not a temptation. I know what drugs do. They're not a temptation. And those are my boundaries. Those are limits I put on my life that I'm greatly happy about having. So I will never cross over them. I will never go over them. And I'm fine with that. It doesn't bother me in the slightest. I don't mind not going over them. And I don't feel I'm losing anything by not going over them. So it, to me, it's a good thing. And to me, it feels good not going into areas where I would be uncomfortable. I would possibly feel threatened. I would possibly feel unhappy or just not good that I'm there, or I had doubts about it. So anything like that, I just don't go to. No, people don't ask me to go to events and stuff anymore because I won't go. And they already know I won't go. They know what my boundaries are, and they say, "Oh, James won't go, so we won't ask him." And I don't feel left out. I don't regret them not asking me. I don't wish I could go out but want to stay home at the same time, introvert or whatever. I've set a boundary, which is I don't drink, and that's it. I don't drink, and any environment where alcohol is consumed like that, I don't go to, and not because I'm be tempted, but because the other people will be how I don't want to be if I were drinking. Meaning their morality, their responsibility, their decency, their good manners, their good behavior, all disappear as they become more and more immature with the alcohol. As their immaturity rises with the alcohol, their danger to me or my wife or whoever I took there, if I were married, the danger to us would be there because of their immature and irresponsible behavior under the influence of drugs or alcohol. So the boundaries protect me from all of that. And I have no regrets. I'm not tempted in the slightest, and I don't wish to ever partake in such activities ever again. It's if our politicians had these boundaries, we good don't lie, and it wasn't a career, and it was about making a lot of money for them. We would be voting politicians on what you probably call voters' boundaries. Like if you're a good person, decent, had good, honest work ethics, and you're honourable, and you wanted a good, honourable world, you would only vote someone who was of those qualities. If none of the politicians were of those qualities, you wouldn't vote. They say better to vote the devil you know. Well, it's better not to vote someone who you regret voting in. So you just don't vote. It's just not worth it. And you can still get on in life with your values and your courage and your strengths, regardless of who gets into power. You make do. And that's how I live these days. I haven't voted since I was 18. And because I don't believe in either political party, their beliefs, and I don't believe in their leaders. So I find them very depressing and don't even watch the political parties or any of that stuff anymore. I just get on with my life with whoever gets in, and I deal with my life with my faith in God, and and I feel very confident that I miss out on all the political stuff on TV and all the stress and everything it brings, and then I have to sit there watching them lying, and so it's not a loss. But if they were good, decent people, and we voted them in for being good, decent people, they would take lower wages and they would work to make the country a better place, which they don't. And the fact that they fight in the Second World War in England and probably most other countries, both the opposition and power, the party in power, would band together for the greater good of the cause, which was to win the Second World War. Today, it should be exactly the same. The opposition and the party in power should be working together to make things better. If people see that the opposition, is coming up with better ideas and they really like where they're coming from, they'll vote them in. It's all about working for the better of the country, not for as a career and personal gain, and to be named as a prime minister or higher ups or the whip or whatever they call them in the party. And there would be no childish arguments in politics, and so the public could see what kind of people they voted in and be sorely disappointed. So if they had boundaries, our countries would be in better condition because the politicians had boundaries. They said, we're not going to go further than those boundaries. We have good moral standards. We believe in decency. We believe in the wholesome family. We believe in honesty, integrity, good work ethics. And then the dollar wouldn't come first. The people would come first. And at the moment, the dollar comes first. So that's why I believe in boundaries. If we each personally had boundaries, if our marriage had boundaries, if we taught our children boundaries, like your children, if you had a lot to do in your child's life when they become teenagers, someone offers them a joint, they'll come home and they'll say, Dad, blah, 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 offered me a joint at school, marijuana and or some other drugs or cigarettes and stuff, and the child would say, "I know how bad they are. You've taught me. I didn't go near them. I was horrified. This is not who we are, and this is not who I am. This is not what I do, and this is not what I will do. So I'm really glad and get Dad and Mum a hug. So I'm so happy you taught me these boundaries. It saved me from drugs. My friend Johnny, he took the joint, and he's now getting stoned with the person who's given it to them. And your children will watch Johnny, he doesn't have boundaries, life go downhill. So our politicians currently, who they have no moral boundaries, and so they're selling the country out for everything. And that's where we need to look at the politicians and say, well, I have boundaries. I want you to have boundaries too. But do the people have boundaries? Most of them don't, because they all believe they have weaknesses, and therefore, so what if the politician smokes drugs? So what if the politician is a feminist or a chauvinist? So what if the politician has beaten his wife, or his wife's beaten the kid? So what? They've got flaws. Let's vote them in anyway. And that's how we are where we are. The politicians are dysfunctional, immature. The people are dysfunctional. You got to remember, I said when we take drugs and alcohol, we become immature. These people are immature without them, without being drunk, without being stoned. They're immature, and they vote and they believe in immature things. So what we need to do as human beings is to consider our options and teach ourselves. I mean, your parents, we're going from generations of bound parents without boundaries. So you say, well, I want a better future. I don't want to get cancer. I don't want my children to get cancer. So I'm going to have food boundaries. We eat from the garden. We eat good food. I'm going to make an effort to teach my children. I'm going to dig the garden, get out there, weed, and sort it out. Have a greenhouse. Then you say, I'm going to collect rainwater because it's healthier than the tap water, which has fluoride and chlorine in it and stuff like that. I don't want that. I don't want to drink that. I don't want my children drink that. I'll set a boundary there. I will make an effort. So each boundary should have efforts of commitment. So you make the effort, you make the commitment, and you stand by it, and you stick with it, and you live with it. There's sexual boundaries, in your marriage. There's no affairs or anything like that, and those are boundaries that you will, immorality, and you will both stand strong and firm with each other on those boundaries. And you'll actually be disgusted and grossed out and horrified that people actually do those things. And you'll be disgusted at the thought of yourself doing it or your partner doing it. And you don't want to see your partner in that particular way because you want to see your partner as they are without the filthy side of it. And so you can recognize the immoral and immoral things, decency and indecency, and say it. I'm not going to be a part of that. My partner's going to be a part of that. We're not going to defile ourselves, and we want to respect each other, and we want to go through a whole marriage respecting each other. So we're not going anywhere near that. These are set solid as rock boundaries that we're not going to cross. And same for your business if you have a company, the same for your moral thinking. You're not going to watch pornography. And a lot of it comes down being hard on yourself in the beginning, maybe. But in the end, once you see the logic and the destruction these things do to you, you don't do them. It's like fantasizing. Sexual fantasies are highly promoted these days. If you fantasize about someone, you're spiritually opening your mind up to having an affair with that person. And that's why when a lot of people have these fantasies about another person that become reality. The other person sort of clicks onto it and you're both looking at each other up and down like, yeah. And next thing you know, behind your marriage partner's base, you're both having sex and then 2 marriages are destroyed. So the thing with sex is you look at this gorgeous female or male and you say, you're going to break my wife or husband's heart if I go near you. You give me the winks and the smiles and you're wiggling your butt at me and you're thinking, yeah, you're going to destroy everything I've got. And I'm going to have a long, miserable, regretful life because of a couple of hours in bed with you or a night. And you say, no, my boundaries are strong, they're worthy, they're decent, they're good, and I care for the person I married. I love the person I married. We have ups and downs, we have our problems, we have our issues, but we're not going there. She's not going there, I'm not going there. That's not happening. And then you just say, nah. So you don't do it. You don't want to do it. And that's where the boundaries become strong. And you're seeing the negative side of crossing the boundary, all the harm it can do to your health, your body, your life, your children, the person you've married. And you think, I'm not going to make her cry just for sex with someone else and go home and have sex with her. So you come back, you say, no, I'm not going over that boundary. What you can see, the damage you can do, there's no regrets. Another person's physical body, you don't regret not sleeping with them. You don't want to do it, and that's it, period. It's like, that's just so bad. And so the boundaries keep you safe, secure, protected in your own life. They keep you respecting yourself, liking yourself, looking in the mirror and say, I like you, enjoying your own company and thinking well of yourself, talking well to yourself, not saying you're a stupid idiot because you had an affair, saying that's the way, say no. And feeling really proud and then going home and hugging your spouse and saying, there was someone at work today who was trying to get me to go to bed with her. And all I could think of was breaking your heart and how horrible it would be. And I just walked away quickly. I'm not going there. I can't do that to you. And let your spouse know how you feel about them and that you won't do these things. You won't cross those boundaries. And then they realize they shouldn't either. So boundaries are special. They should be strong. They should be powerful. They should be lived and hold on to with great pride and love. And you actually love your boundaries. You're like, I'm so fond of my boundaries. I'm so glad I've got the people come up and they say, come on, let's go do this and that. And you say, nah, I'm good. You have a good time, but I'm good. And they go. And you don't regret them going because you know they're not going to have a good time. And even though maybe 5 times out of 10, nothing bad goes. I mean, say you had an accident, like a drunken driving accident, texting driving, or a drug driving accident, or something like that. You may have driven a car 500 times and nothing went wrong. And then one day someone plows into your car and cut your legs off. It doesn't matter how many times it happens, it can happen. And that's the point. It can happen. Not that it always does. I had an uncle who had a Ferrari, and he was overseas working in Saudi Arabia. He was an accountant, and for an Arab sheikh, and he left his Ferrari here. It was in a garage, and he said to his brother, "Take it out every now and then for a spin." They refused to do it. They were terrified of it. And then one day after 6 months, they said, "Come on, let's just go to the dairy unit." They were scared of wrecking it, and they said, "Come on, just go to the shop and then come back." So they got in the car and they drove to the first intersection. And when they got to the first intersection, a car of drunks went across and hit the front of the Ferrari and demolished it. And another case for the same brothers went over. One of them broke his nose because he was always getting scraps. And he went overseas and he got his nose fixed. And he came back to Muslim, and he got out of the car. And this is the stories my mother told me. He got out of the car as soon as he got there, and he was in the car, pulled outside of the family house, and someone hit the back of his car. So he got straight out of the car, and they said, "What the heck did you do that for?" And the guy they got into a punch up, and his nose got broken again. So you may not think that things will happen, but they do happen. So if his boundary was, I'm not getting back into another fight because of my nose, he would have calmly got it and said, "Let's work this out," without wanting a fight. He wouldn't have got his nose broken. And with a Ferrari, someone else's, don't touch it. That's your boundary. Don't cross that boundary. No matter how much you might think it's tempting, it's not your car. Don't touch it. That's my rules. If it's someone else's, don't touch it. And I don't cross that boundary. So boundaries are valuable. Valuable, very, very valuable. Love them, cherish them. People tell you to cross them. And know always that the person who tells you or tries to get you to cross your boundaries, they're not your friend. They may be friends in other areas of your life, but in reality, they're not your friend. Not because they're dishonest, but simply because they're trying to make you do things that will harm you. A friend doesn't do that. A friend trusts your boundaries, has faith in your boundaries, says, "Oh, so you don't drink? Oh, wow, that's wonderful. So I'll only spend non-drinking time with you, not trying to take you to places to drink." There's a big difference between friends and friends. And those kind of people who try to take you to places where you'll bring down your boundaries and cross them, they're not your friends. Even if you've known them 30, 40 years, maybe you've been with a friend for 20 years, you both drank for 20 years, they were a good friend, a drinking friend. You give up drinking, they keep trying to get you to go back to drinking, you got to kill that friendship. Because they just drag you back to what made you miserable before it destroyed your marriage and stuff, mental health and stuff. So you say, you're a good drinking friend in the past, but now I don't drink. The only real connection we have is drinking, or one of the connections we have is drinking, and you keep trying to drag me back. We can't do this anymore. I'm not doing this anymore. I must be strong, I must be firm, and I must say no. And know what it is, and stand by your boundary. You'll walk away smiling. You might be sad for your friend, but you'll be happy for your inner strength. Every time you say no, when you have a boundary, you can be happy for your inner strength, and you can smile and say, "Yeah, I said no. I felt good. I'm looking after myself." and I'm making sure I'm not immoral, I'm not indecent, I'm not a bad person, I'm not a bad person for other people, I'm not harming my children's lives, and I'm not opening them up for attack by someone else. I'm a good, decent, solid, dependable, responsible person and parent. And that's how you stay. And that's how you get self respect. That's how you like yourself. And that's how you can look yourself in the mirror in the morning and smile. Because you're all the things that you like about um, people. And you think other people should be, you are, to make the world a better place. I'll leave it at that.